USARadioHealth.com.
The CDC releasing new guidelines.
The CDC has updated its guidelines on disinfecting.
Okay, gotcha.
Saying that cleaning with soap and water.
You got me? You got me?
Brandon?
Got me?
Gotcha, okay, cool.
Okay.
All right.
Agency clarified that disinfectants should still be used in indoor settings.
This is not America. Sha-la-la-la-la. Little piece of you. A little piece of
Welcome
me.
back. It's Talking Truth to Power, Nevada's and Northern California and the world.
Around the world.
Yeah, Freedom Talk Radio. And we're here today to give you the latest lowdown, and most of it you probably won't see on the mainstream media, but you can catch it here every Wednesday at 11 o'clock a.m.
Same time, same channel.
Same time, same channel.
Which is, by the way, why we do it, is so that
Right.
they have somewhere to go to
Right.
pick up what they should know.
So I guess, the populist spokesperson, Representative Matt Gaetz, has been in the news lately.
Has he?
And not all of it is very flattering, but we still don't know. What we're going to talk about here is mostly just from bits and pieces. I mean, if there is an ongoing investigation, the feds are not going to, release all the details at this point. But apparently he's under investigation, and he's claiming he was being extorted. And there's an insight into that very few people are covering as to exactly who is extorting him.
Right.
Yeah, so.
The only, and I'm weighing in a little early into our segment here, but the only thing that has credibility about all of this that we're hearing, for me, is that it originated under Bill Barr.
Mm-hmm.
When he was...
Yeah. They say the investigation was open before the election.
We talked about this on the show, I'll bet you 9-10 months ago, that this was out there.
Mhm.
There was just no legs to it, but it was out there. And I mean, I've been an early supporter, as I've said many times on this show, of Matt Gaetz. I think he's the heir apparent to Donald Trump.
Right. And the way he took on Liz Cheney, for example, and that was a good thing. And he's backed Trump explicitly. Now, he does advocate for the legalization of drugs. He's tried to form alliances with the left, like AOC and others, to get bills written that would legalize drugs. And according to the reports, there's another side to Matt Gaetz that you don't normally get. But according to, again, this is unverified, but he's kind of a frat boy when it comes to dating and sexual and relationships. That he apparently even when he was in the Florida State House, he was involved with games. Like one of them said there was a Harry Potter game, which for every woman you conquered, you got a Harry Potter figure added to your name or something like that. So
I never heard of it.
Yeah. So we don't know if that's true, but we've also heard that even in Congress, he would go around showing pictures of naked women, and the reason why he has their pictures is because he had sex with them and so on. So he doesn't have apparently, and again, we don't know, he's not exactly a feminist icon. Let's put it that way.
But ask him if he cares.
Yeah, I know. Ask him if he cares.
Well, he's 38 years old.
Right, and now he's engaged to a 26-year-old.
Right.
And so hopefully he's putting behind his wild oat-sowing youth. But in the meantime, he may be caught up in some, lascivious affairs, especially with this person named Greenberg. Joel Greenberg, who is a former Florida tax collector.
Hard to imagine a Jewish accountant or a tax collector.
Yeah, it's hard to remember.
Yeah.
No. What are the odds, But, the allegation is that he was seen in his office going through computer records, allegedly driver's licenses, looking for women. and they were involved with. Greenberg has been indicted on 33 counts of sex trafficking and wire fraud. So the fact that he seems to have been associated with them is not a good thing, but it doesn't necessarily mean that he was also involved with these affairs.
Yeah, no, it doesn't.
And I have a bone to pick because there's very little real sex trafficking, and as soon as the story came out, everybody accused him of sex trafficking. Sex trafficking has a specific meaning that you take an underage person and you traffic them to other people for money. In other words, you take underage people and traffic them for prostitution. Mm-hmm. And that's not really what's alleged here. If anything they could get him on federally, I would think would be the Mann Act, which is the idea of transporting a woman who is underage in another state across state lines in order to have sex yourself with that person.
And how old is that act of Congress?
Well, that goes back to the turn of the
years.
Yeah, it goes back to the turn of the 20th century.
Yeah.
If you're familiar with the plaque that marks the heavyweight bout champion between gentleman Jim Corbett, I think, and Jack. Oh gosh, now I can't think of the black guy's name, and he was the reason why it's out there. But the black heavyweight champion had a white girlfriend, and every time he took her across state lines, they would come after him under the Mann Act. And Jack Johnson, that's his name. I almost had a Biden there. I'm sorry.
No, that's all right. I mean, it's not like it's
right,
particularly topical in this era.
No, but it's still on the books. It's still on the books. But it's, for example, in Washington D.C., the age of consent is 16, but in Florida it's 18. Mm-hmm. So you could have a girlfriend in Washington, but you can't bring her back to Florida. And
I think it's even lower in some other states, like
right?
Arkansas or something.
I think
like that.
Yeah. In Arkansas, you have to be a cousin as well.
And you have to have Asa Hutchinson as governor. They go hand in hand. Tucker had a time with him last night, didn't he?
Yeah.
Did you see the show?
Yes, I did. Tucker had a good time with him.
Yeah, it's a peculiar time to turn libertarian on us. It basically was what Tucker was going after there.
Yeah.
I mean, I took both sides at various parts of the segment, but ultimately, I think what it really comes down to is who's going to pay for all of this transgenderism.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, there's the cost. It's going to be expensive.
We'll be right back. But we didn't get to the...
The driving force in truck and auto repair. Everybody knows.
Getting to know you.
Let me tell you about America Matters with Eddie Floyd. It comes on every Monday at noon. Don't want you to miss it. That's America Matters with Eddie Floyd.
BRENDAN PRAIU. But you want to be still.
Want to expand your advertising dollar? Sponsor this or any America Matters program by calling 775-827-8900, extension 2. Now, back to the show.
Hey, welcome back to Talking Truth to Power. I'm Brendan Trainor, my co-host Leah Faegre, and we were talking about the Gates story that's been in the news. And one thing that has not been brought up is the fact that the potential Israeli connection.
This really complicates the entire narrative on this subject.
Right.
It's going to be difficult for media interests to get involved with it.
Yes, exactly.
And so that's why you're here.
We have heard identified that there was this lawyer named McGee who used to work in the Justice Department, and his friend is named Novak, who has also appeared on the scene a couple of times. Or Kent. I think the accomplice is named Kent.
Yeah, I saw a name Kent in that story.
But the Novak is an Israeli embassy official in New York who is the head of their media operations for the Israeli government at their embassy. And you know what embassies are. They're basically they're basically spy central, So this guy probably has a connection to Mossad and Israeli intelligence and so on, but
this is not a Jews in the News segment.
no,
Oh, okay.
we're not. It's not an official Jews in the News, although it could be.
Yeah,
but we just don't know enough about it so far. But the idea is that they were, as Gates said from the very beginning, and he went on Tucker Carlson, that they were being extorted. Mm-hmm. And he got into an email confirmation with Scott Adams, who is the Trump supporter, the cartoonist of Dilbert. And they went back and forth on that. And the Israeli guy says that, we weren't extorting him. The $25 million was a suggestion. Mm-hmm. And the whole thing is we're trying to free this former FBI agent named Levinson, who's been missing in Iran, supposedly, for 14 years.
I thought they had finally written him off.
Yes, he's presumed dead.
Yeah.
So that's why if they have some real intelligence that he's still alive, it's not reflected in our government, policy. Yeah. The family thinks he's dead. The government says he's dead.
Right.
So, but apparently they want to do a commando raid and to try and free this guy Levinson, which would be, an international incident, could even cause a war, but that's what they were trying to do, and so.
I'm not buying any of this.
Yeah, I know. It's hard to.
It's come on.
It's beginning to sound a little bit more like Richard Epstein than Matt Gaetz.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, getting awfully close.
Yeah. So I don't know. Was Gates involved in a spy versus spy honeypot scheme? Like we did to that Russian gal that was over here and trying to get the Second Amendment.
Right. She's gone back now.
Yeah, she's gone back. She's been finally let go. But was that what they were doing with Gates?
Well, I think what they were doing with Gates, and I think it's pretty clear that they're afraid of him. Mm-hmm. They don't want him to be the nominee of the party in 2024.
Right.
So anything they can do to stir up any kind of negative choices for the American people would might help them.
Yeah, they're just gathering compromat.
Exactly right.
Exactly right. Yeah. Or as Whitney Webb, who covered the Epstein affair, says that they get you involved with these things and then they take pictures or videos, like in Epstein's case, and then you either become their asset or they spill the beans and destroy your career.
An extortion, effectively.
Right.
I think the whole thing is prevaricative. I just don't see any legitimacy to it at all. But we'll see how it plays out.
Right.
I'm a big fan.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of his politics, and if he was, a bit of a pickup artist or something,
that doesn't hurt him.
Yeah,
either.
It doesn't hurt him either, really, in my mind.
None of my business.
I mean, Biden and Jill they were married to different people when they hooked up. It's just you can't go around playing these games unless you have. Well, the underage thing, as a libertarian, I'm not real happy with statutory rape laws.
Right.
Yeah, and the sex trafficking thing, like I said, that's way overblown. There's not that much sex trafficking in America, so they have to, and they make a big deal out of it, so they have to call everything sex trafficking now.
I just think it's an intelligence operation.
Yeah, it could very definitely be a complete Mossad operation.
Yep.
And speaking of Israel and operations, you may have heard something about how in a potential coup in Jordan.
Yes.
And
it's got the CIA all over it too, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
Doesn't it?
It's got the CIA and/or Mossad and the Arab, the Gulf states, Riyadh and the United Arab Emirates. The thing is that Israel is suddenly Sunni Arabs. Yeah. Israel is suddenly becoming best friends with Saudi Arabia and it's because of economic development. I understand there's plans for a major railway that would go all around Saudi Arabia.
It's the NATO of the region.
Yeah, and they want them to be. That's right. definitely the United States wants them to be the NATO of the region.
I think that was Trump's plan from almost the outset. We talked about it on the show a couple of years
Right.
ago. Yeah.
But Jordan is kind of in the way because the Jordan monarchy, their whole reason for existence, they don't have oil. So their whole reason for existence is they became the guardian of Temple Mount and the holy shrines, and they're supposed to take care of that, while Saudi Arabia takes care of Mecca.
And Syrian evacuation camps.
Yeah.
Plenty of those there, too.
Right. So the thing is that Israel wants to offload the Palestinians on Jordan. They've been talking about this for a while. They want to eliminate the possibility of having a two-state solution, which I think is dormant anyway. I think it's past that. Mm-hmm. But the very possibility of a two-state solution they think would be finished, kaput, if they could just move all the Palestinians somehow into Jordan and get rid of them that way. So the Jordan king was not very pleased with that, and he and Netanyahu don't get along. So all of a sudden, King Abdullah, that is, we have this discovery that Prince Hamza bin al-Hussein, who is the half-brother of the king, was ordered to desist his activities that were a security breach. And it wouldn't be the first time a close relative tried to overthrow a king. Two others close to the royal family were actually arrested. So the thing is that this is another push by Israel to remake the Middle East and never mind state sovereignty.
Yeah, I think it is clearly an intelligence operation. No question about it.
So this one has been foiled.
Yep.
But we'll see if what
heads
else
will
happens.
roll in the meantime.
Yes, I'm sure. Well, MBS too. I mean,
yeah, exactly.
MBS. Biden refuses to sanction MBS, but he's on a short rope. I mean, he hasn't made a correct decision yet, except now pushing for this economic development. I mean, he's lost all kinds of faith
He is there to do
billions of dollars in this war on Yemen, which he's not going to win, and and killing all these children in the process.
He is there to do as much damage in the 2 years that they have control of the House, or, to the extent that they can control the reconciliation process, I guess.
Right.
As they can.
Right.
That's job one here. And Kamala doesn't want to go down to look at the borders. Joe doesn't want to go down.
Yeah,
to look
Kamala. You said Kamala doesn't want to go down and look at the borders.
How did Kamala come up? How did Kamala come up, anyways?
He got the laugh. No. I guess he didn't. All right, but anyway, and as Philip Giraldi pointed out, I mean, Israel is constantly meddling in our affairs. Not so much Jordan, but if Israel is connected to Matt Gaetz and trying to use their influence to pressure him or his father is supposedly worth about $500 million, from what I've heard.
Yeah.
So they're trying to pressure him into funding this operation.
So that $25 million extortion is just a drop in the bucket.
Right. Well, it's a little more than a drop. If he's got $500 million, $25 million, but it's still no more than a glass of water, if not a drop. So, and we're going to talk a little bit about how China is getting involved in the Middle East, too. So things are changing, and I don't think that Biden is aware of everything that's going on.
No. He doesn't know where the bathroom is.
You'll need to unlock your iPad first.
Well, we'll do that maybe during the commercial, which is coming right up here. What are we going to talk about in the next segment, by the way?
Well, we could...
Because I know our listeners are hanging on the edge here.
We could have talk about how if you get woke, you go broke.
Yeah.
Or the flashpoints, the war-mongering flashpoints that we're seeing, and the reaction of what's called the resistance to it. And
okay,
you're not going to hear that word on Fox or
CBS
or any place else.
Or did they get themselves in some quicksand over the weekend, huh?
Yeah, they sure did.
CBS. Not that it's new to them, but it's the most recent example of it. They're going to have a tough time getting the wood to be out of this.
Hi, this is Eddie Floyd. Let me tell you about my favorite non-profit public charity, Wainema Wild Horse Sanctuary, located on the Forsythe Ranch in Hallelujah Junction area. And please go to www.wainemaranch.com. That's WYNEMA ranch.com.
This is America Matters Media on AM 1180 KCKQ, a Lotus broadcast station, the power of radio since 1967.
Unable to listen to the whole show? A recording of today's program will be available later today. Visit americamatters.us and click on the podcast link. Now, back to the show.
Hey, welcome back. It's Truth, the Power, the Matter, and the World's Freedom Talk Radio. I'm Brendan Trainor, and I'm here with Leland Faegre. So, we are very concerned about the flashpoints and war and what's going on internationally on this show.
Especially with globalists in charge.
Yes, exactly. As we now have in the White House. So, we're not sure what's happening with the first choke point, which is the Ukraine. Now, we talked last week about how China confronted America, but, after they did that, they kind of got along pretty well at that meeting. So.
Oh, in the Alaska meeting?
Yeah, so I don't think that Biden is going to do much about China at all.
Well, a lot of it was for the cameras.
Right. But it was important. It was for the Chinese cameras, too.
Right, exactly.
There's all kinds of talks about the 100 years of humiliation at the hands of the West and all of that.
And then Kim is complaining about situations resulting from the boycotts. So he's in trouble, and he's kind of on his knees this morning. I saw a story. Did you see that?
No. What did he say?
Well, he's claiming we've never had it this bad. And it's hard to imagine, because it's a basket case. But he's claiming that the boycotts have really done a lot of damage to the country. I wouldn't be surprised.
Right.
It wasn't in good shape before the boycotts.
And there's also some hints of up near the North Korean-Russian border about people being executed and imprisoned. Mm-hmm. And that's probably about, they don't pay if you live in the capital, Pyongyang, you got it pretty good in North Korea by their standards. But the Communist Party has to invite you to live there.
By invitation only.
Right. It's by invitation only. If you live in the rural areas, it's pretty much a hell, What did Trump say about those countries? It's a SHIT hole.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they've apparently, their world-class athlete federation there in North Korea has been yanked from the Tokyo Games.
Beijing Games? Oh, Tokyo
the
Games.
Tokyo
yeah,
Games.
this Tokyo Games.
So, the rescheduled games that are
right.
So, things are not going well.
What they do in North Korea is they look the other way, and there's thriving black markets. Well, apparently they could no longer look the other way, and they cracked down on some black markets up there and in the northern part of the country and executed and imprisoned some people. But so that's where that news came from. But,
and the Gateway Pundit is reporting moments ago that the State Department has backed off a potential boycott of the Beijing Winter Olympics.
Right.
As China threatens robust response. So.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's the thing. China is making itself felt in places where they have not made themselves felt before.
Such as the World Health Organization.
Yeah. But we have the president of the Ukraine. I'm going to circle back now.
Are you going to circle back?
I'm going to circle back.
You find that one in there, Shanimal?
So the president of Ukraine, the former comedian Zelensky, nothing is going very well for him. He was supposed to get rid of corruption, and he hasn't. He was supposed to try and fix the problems that the country is having with Russia, and he hasn't done that. So lately he's been moving a lot of military to the border with the Ukraine. People have been killed. A 5-year-old boy was killed in the Ukraine. I saw pictures of his funeral. And Russia has been moving troops to the border. They can't do that. That's Russian aggression.
It almost looks like they're just doing exercises on the border, doesn't it?
Well, they do these exercises every year. Yeah. But they did move, but it probably is related to what's going on in the Ukraine, because they moved troops to Krasnodar, which is where that large 50-mile bridge that they built from Russia to the Ukraine, to Crimea. So they moved troops to their territory there, and they also moved 25,000 troops into Crimea itself. So they reinforced Crimea. And so there's a lot of tension in the region, and it looked like, and you have the right-wing neo-Nazis, and they are chomping at the bit to kill Muscovites, which is what they call ethnic Russians. So Lavrov, Putin himself spoke to Merkel and to Macron, because there's something called the Minsk Accords that came up after the events of 2014, where the Crimea was, I'm not going to say re-annexed, but reabsorbed into Russia.
It's more or less historical sovereign territory.
Right. I mean, the first king of Russia, Vladimir, who converted the Rus into Christians, he was crowned in Crimea. I mean, it has a 1,000-year-long history with Russia. So it was Nikita Khrushchev got drunk one Christmas when he was president, and he was Ukrainian, and he decided to move Ukraine from the Krasnodar district of the Soviet Union and attach it to the Ukrainian district of the Soviet Union. But Ukraine was not a separate country. It was just an administrative move at that time.
So you're saying Nikita Khrushchev got drunk?
Yes, he was known to do that on occasion, as all Russians are.
Shut the front door.
Yeah, I know. I mean, you go to the Baltic states, it's even worse. In Latvia, there are like only 84 men to every 100 women, because the men get drunk so much they die early.
Oh my gosh. Yeah,
they die. They fall asleep in the cold or get involved in a traffic accident. I mean, if you want a young, beautiful Latvian or any of those Baltic countries, I mean, they're dying for men up there. So
this show
get
goes
your
around,
tickets booked.
Yeah, this show goes around the world, so tell a friend.
Yeah. So, and I'm speaking as an Irishman, so I know from experience about countries with alcoholic tendencies. But anyway, so, it does not appear, the bottom line is that Biden at this point does not appear willing to send troops to back up Zelensky if he is serious about invading the Donbass. And, the Donbass is that two city-states, Luhansk and Donetsk, who are 85% Russian, and they voted 90% for the Russian president that was a Russian-oriented president that was ousted in the 2014 coup, and that's what it was. And remember Victoria Nuland handing out cookies and telling, getting caught on a phone call, telling who the next president of Ukraine will be.
All right.
Yeah, so she's back in power.
Yeah.
Yep, she's.
Yeah, they're filling the vacuum.
Right. They're bringing they're getting the band back together.
It's a return to the mean. They got to get their new world order, whether you like it or not.
But the feeling is that Biden is too weak at this point, and too distracted by China and everything else to send troops into the Ukraine.
But I don't think it's Biden anyway.
Right.
Other
the
architects.
The Harris-Biden administration.
The administration.
Right.
Yeah.
But the thing is, there are the right wing in Russia is saying, maybe it's better to do it now than to do it in a couple of years when, if things go well for the Harris-Biden administration,
likely.
They might be willing to send troops to the Ukraine.
Not likely. This administration is going to be bleeding arterially by the time the next general election comes along in 2022, and that's just next year.
Yes.
We'll be in full campaign swing by this time next year, pretty much.
Yeah, so they have to get their agenda through.
Absolutely. They have no time to waste.
No. And
but it's the border that makes it all the difference.
Right.
They've got to turn Texas blue, and that entire Gulf area has got to be, subjective blue thinking for them to make any headway in the next election.
Yeah, now I hear that Biden is going to build the wall.
Because here's the deal. As their numbers go down, and
here's the deal. You said it.
Their numbers.
Come on, man.
Yeah, come on, man. And as their numbers have gone down, they realize they have to be careful about the narrative. So now they're going to be able to say, well, we're going to plug up those holes. And so to the average rank and file American, whether he calls himself a Democrat or a Republican, he's going to hear, because that's all he hears is just general things. He's not really following. They're probably not listening to this show.
No.
So all they're following is a talking point here, a talking point there, and what they're going to hear is, well, Biden is plugging up those holes. Things are getting better there.
Yeah.
That's how they. By the way, here's my Biden impersonation. How am I doing?
Oh, you can't hear it.
It's
though.
also my Jake Tapper impersonation. See how my eyes squint?
Yep.
That's how he does it.
Well, he's too busy chasing down his dog and breaking his foot, and then having him be declared a rogue animal because he bit 2 people now.
And putting a lid on media if he gets tired in the course of the day.
You know why he got a German Shepherd? To show that he was capable.
Oh, okay.
That he was a macho guy, and he can
see.
have a big dog.
But he's got 2 of them, didn't he?
Yeah, he's got 2 of them.
Yeah.
So they're not little. What did Obama have? A Portuguese water dog? they're cute dogs, but they're not like German Shepherds. But that's backfired on him. But you won't see Jack Tapper talk about it.
Yeah.
No. So hopefully that is one flashpoint that is not going to erupt, but we still have to keep our fingers crossed, because we are sending in lots of armaments. And Zelensky talked to Lloyd, the new Secretary of Defense from Raytheon.
Mm-hmm.
And he said that, sure, we're going to give you all the support you need, all the arms you need. Just don't ask us to send troops.
There's a news flash here from Gateway Pundit. Trump is saying that Matt Gaetz never asked him for a pardon.
Yeah, I saw that too, yeah.
This is America Matters Media on AM 1180 KCKQ, a Lotus broadcast station. The power of radio since 1967.
Are you shy and don't want to talk on the air? Text us your questions or comments to 775-237-2266. Now, back to the show.
Hey, welcome back. It's Talking Truth to Power, and this is your host, Brendan Trainor, my co-host, Leland Faegre. And Lee, have you ever heard about wolf warrior economics?
I think I'm about to.
Well,
I'm all ears.
It's the we've seen after the fiasco in Alaska, we've seen the Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Li visit Iran, where he signed a 10-year, $400 billion infrastructure deal, and then he went to the Gulf states and Africa and India and talked to all the foreign leaders there. And then, in the meantime, Sergei Lavrov, the foreign minister of Russia, went to China and India. And Russia and China are now promoting a new economic paradigm. And they say that it's based on both Russian and Chinese history and culture. But basically, Russia is now saying, and China are now acknowledging, that they are forming a global resistance economy. And this is not just about allies helping each other, but a new economic development proposal in which they're saying that any rent-yielding resource, any resource that has, this is on the last page.
Yeah, I see it.
Any resource that yields, money banking, land, natural resources, and national infrastructure should be in the public domain and provide basic needs to everybody basically free. But in addition, each country should maintain its sovereignty. In Iran, Wang said, Iran decides independently on its relations with other countries and is not like some countries that change their position with one phone call. And obviously he's talking about how the U.S. strong arms our allies into doing what is not in their best interest, but is in what America's short-term interest.
Or some other regional partner.
Right,
like Israel, for example.
Right. Or as Putin once put it, America doesn't have allies, it has vassals. And they want to shake off the Western yoke, in quotes. So the message has been pretty well received as far as we know so far. And China and Russia are prepared, they don't want to do it, but they're prepared to de-emphasize trade with the West and concentrate on the rest of the world. Now, I take the time every once in a while to look at Chinese state media on YouTube, and why not? I mean, BBC is British state media, and, Fox News, and especially MSNBC and CNN.
Well, keep in mind, they took down one of ours a few weeks ago. They're not going to take down China YouTube videos.
No. So, they might. You never know.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, England has been trying to block Russia Today, which is, it's not really...
Twitter, Facebook, and Google are globalist partners.
Right. And so they were prepared to, in order to keep their sovereignty, and this is what Lavrov told the EU, he said, if you keep blaming us and interfering in our internal affairs like the Navalny situation, there is... And China also, China has a new trade agreement with the EU, and when they sanctioned China over the Uyghurs, which is a total lie, China turned around and sanctioned the British, and they were shocked. Nobody's ever done that to us before.
Well, you're going to see a lot more of it.
Yeah, exactly. So, as Chinese state media is putting it, Africa has more people than the United States. So,
well, that's the next frontier for the economic globalists.
Right, exactly.
Once upon a time, it was Japan.
And I understand that Madeleine Albright and the Rothschilds are investing in cell phones in Africa.
Oh yeah,
cell phone networks. So,
they're using them big time there, as I understand it already.
Right. But generally speaking, we send drones and China sends engineers, so it's a little bit different. But and, it does kind of make sense because Russia is an individualistic Western country, at least ever since Peter the Great, and they adopted classical liberal ideas. But it's also somewhat less individualistic than, like, Northern Europe. And it's more similar to Ireland, for example, and Southern Europe, where it has a longer history of communal living, village structure rather than urban structures and so on. So
that would be the influence of the Catholic Church over the course of last millennium.
And well, if we're not doing Jews in the news,
we're not doing Martin Luther either. But
no. But the Catholic Church promoted individualism that during its heyday as a real power in the Middle Ages. I mean, they encouraged cities and they encouraged the serfs. Europe had serfs. I mean, Russia had serfs. We probably know that. But Europe had serfs, too. It was called the Villain system. And guess who was in charge of most of the estates? Normally, they were Jewish. Jewish landlords, not landlords, but Jewish managers. And, of course, the Jews are going to say that's the only job we could take. I mean, they wouldn't let us do anything else except lend money and lord it over the peasants, so we had to do it,
No choice.
No choice. It's our fault.
Yep, it is.
Yeah. So
it's always our fault.
So the church actually tried to protect the peasants, and you had the Franciscans and the Dominicans, the mendicant orders that actually took their vows of poverty and celibacy seriously, and the peasants respected them and believed that they were on their side, like sort of like Juniper Sierra in California, that they thought that that they were there to help them. And
well, I would love to be a fly on the wall, because I think you're giving them a little bit too much credit, those orders, because the Vatican didn't have any interest in those things at all. But
well, you can't say that except until they became much more corrupt, and the Jesuits, for example, they were formed.
Well, I know, but by gradation, I mean, where do you pick up the story? I mean,
gradation against...
By gradation, where would you pick up the story, from the 3rd century? I mean, where does that actually begin?
Well, through the High Middle Ages.
Okay.
Like through the 12th century. That's one of the reasons why the Jewish people are so afraid of white civilization, because they lost a lot of their privileges during the High Middle Ages. The church generally defended the interests of the poor, and the Christian religion is more centered on that. I'm not, I'm not defending the Christian religion per Christian religion.
But what you are defending is that they sponsored, armies, state armies.
Well, no, that they encouraged first of all, they got out of the Middle East. We only have 3 minutes again. We're going to talk religion, but Christianity got out of the Middle East, which is a toxic environment. I think both the Jewish religion and Islam are not the best aspects, not the best as far as religions go, for different reasons. But when they got out of the Middle East and
degradation,
and they adopted Greek and Roman civilization, and then gradually they did, over time they did always. I mean, whether it's Jesus was a historical figure or not, he did speak about helping the poor, and that was always been part of Christianity, more so than the other religions, I would say. Even though I might be biased because I was brought up, Catholic.
I think there's some of that, but I mean, that's how he is cast by history.
Right.
I mean, we weren't there.
No. And we don't know whether St. Paul actually created, or I call him St. Paul. Paul of Tarsus was his name. He actually created Christianity, and this whole idea of Christ that we have in the Gospels comes from him. We don't know who wrote the Gospels.
That's right.
Even some of the Bibles admit that.
Right.
That they're anonymous authors.
Payne makes this very clear in his book, The Age of Reason.
Right, and they were edited through the centuries.
Absolutely right.
Some of the wonderful things that Jesus said probably were put in by monks hundreds of years later.
There is a sort of a footnote in The Age of Reason by Thomas Paine that alludes to a group that was around at the time. He very clearly points to this group. I'd have to go back to that section of the book again, but it's very interesting because he gives credit to all of this, to this unique elite group that was around, and at the time. Very fascinating stuff. I'll look that back up, and we'll have more on that, because I think that's really worth talking about.
But even in the Jerusalem church was very different, and that's why the early Christians, if you were a Jewish convert, you had to still, even though you were baptized, you still had to obey Mosaic law. Whereas the Gentiles, and this is what really created Christianity, Paul and Peter, who was Paul's boss, but Paul especially, excuse me, they said, oh no, we're not going to require these people to be circumcised. I mean, circumcision is painful.
Yeah.
And there were no anesthetics in those days.
Bloody.
Yeah. So it's amazing that the Khazars supposedly converted to Judaism. That's another story.
Really peculiar.
But still, so that's where, Paul rebelled against whatever they were doing in Jerusalem, and he created Christianity for Europe. And so that's where that goes, and that's why I'm not circumcised. Are you?
That's why I've read. Yes, I am.
Okay.
That's why I've read The Age of Reason by Thomas Paine 5 times.
Okay.
I think I want to read it again.
All right. Well, thanks for listening in. Bye.